Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good.
Yes.
All right. That's a robust start to things, and rightly so, because we've been away for a couple of weeks, and it seems like forever. 2 weeks is quite a while, but a lot of us were actually together in Atlanta, Georgia, for our conference, and man, was that fantastic. I'm sure we'll have some commentary on that. And then last week I was away, so I'll actually comment on that. But we're here now, and for those that are new to this program, this is 1 hour segments, Saturday mornings, most Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, called Voices of Health Point. And it's just where Health Point coaches and clients and all of us like-minded individuals gather for 1 hour. It goes so fast. And we have typically some known docket items that we kick things off with. And then we get into a real fun, just kind of open roundtable Q&A type of a thing. So it's a very loose format here. It's a lot of fun. But let's go ahead and get going. We've got some known docket items. We've got myself that is going to handle something titled, "You Can't Outrun the Fork Unless You're in the Mountains." And so I'm going to unpack that. We've got Carol Zampa that's going to unpack the KISS principle. Some of you might have heard of that acronym, so looking forward to that from Carol. And then we have Steve that did an amazing talk as part of a panel at our conference in Atlanta, and he has had some ongoing Q&A that has popped up after that, so he's going to take the opportunity to go through some of that Q&A on Muscle Multiplier, some stuff. So kind of a part two of maybe what he covered down in Atlanta, Georgia a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to get started. Hey, I shouted this out in the preamble before I get going. I just want to say I'm loving the new Health Point swag. We've been pressing Network 21 a bit for getting this, and man, have they delivered. So check with your coach or whomever if you'd like to get this. It's super. This is the hoodie. They've got T-shirts and so forth. Some really cool clothing that is Health Point branded. So really excited about that. All right. Time's a wasting. Let's get going. I'm going to start off with my docket item, again titled, "You Can't Outrun the Fork Unless You're in the Mountains." All right. Every Health Point coach has heard it. That moment early in a client's journey when they say, "I just need to get back to the gym." We've all heard that, right? I just need to get back to the gym. It's a familiar mindset. If I can just push harder, sweat more, and grind through a few weeks of workouts, I'll finally see results. But as every experienced coach knows, that thinking is misdirected, because the truth is simple. You can't outrun the fork. Yes, exercise matters deeply for strength, cardiovascular health, mood, and longevity. But when it comes to body composition, metabolic health, and sustainable weight management, nutrition drives the bus. Even the most intense workout plan can't offset what happens on the plate. Let's ground this in a little science. It takes roughly 3,500 calories to burn 1 pound of body fat. The average runner burns about 100 calories per mile. So if you run a full marathon, 26.2 miles, you'll burn only 2,600 calories. That's not even a single pound of fat. It's a staggering realization for people who believe their problem is simply not working out enough. Extreme exercise can create short-term calorie deficits, but those bursts are rarely sustainable. What truly transforms your body and your health over time is consistency. And that begins with what happens at the fork. But occasionally, life hands you an experience that puts that principle to test. That's exactly what happened on a recent 10-day trip out west. 6 of those days I spent deep in the Utah mountains on an elk hunt. Each morning started before sunrise. My pack weighed between 30 and 40 pounds, and the terrain was steep, the kind of up and down grade you'd expect from a ski slope. We averaged around 20,000 steps a day at altitude, often moving for hours at a time. The food, let's just say it wasn't Health Point approved. Our guide cooked hearty, carb-heavy meals, plenty of hash browns, potatoes, and not a lot of greens. By all logic, I should have come home heavier. But to my surprise, the scale barely moved, maybe even down a pound. It was a rare, real-world instance where I managed to, quote, outrun the fork. The lesson, though, wasn't that it can be done. It was that it takes an extreme, unsustainable amount of effort to even come close. That experience made the core health point truth clearer than ever. Daily nutrition, some hot mics going there, please. The daily nutrition choices do the heavy lifting, exercise amplifies them. You can't build your life around mountain level exertion, but you can build it around habits that last. That realization reminded me of something my wife, Emily, mentions from time to time, something often discussed by notable voices in the wellness world, and that is the concept of rucking. Rucking is simply walking or hiking with weight on your back. It originated in the military, but has become one of the most approachable, sustainable forms of resistance training. You don't need a gym membership or special gear. Just grab a backpack, drop in a few pounds, and start walking. Even a 10 to 20 pound pack can increase calorie burn by 10 to 15% compared to walking unweighted. Add hills, stairs, or a brisk pace, and the number goes up again. That might translate to 50 to 150 extra calories per session, which doesn't sound like much, but over 30 days, that's 1,500 to 4,500 calories, or about up to 1.25 pounds of fat difference. More importantly, rucking builds strength, posture, and endurance because it recruits large muscle groups, especially the core, back, and legs. It supports long-term metabolic health. Over time, that added muscle mass increases your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, meaning you burn more energy even at rest. Rucking is simple, sustainable, and scalable. It's not about crushing yourself in the gym. It's about layering a practical form of resistance into something you already do every day, which is walk. At Health Point, we often say, all roads lead back to Health Point, right, Kathy? We always say that. All roads lead back to Health Point. That's because time after time, we'll hear something new in a podcast, see it trending online, or read about it in a peer-reviewed paper, only to realize the principle was already built into the program. Case in point, the Health Point daily messages, day 10, now this is the original daily messages, says, and I quote, also, be aware that if you have lost 5% body weight or fat, you need to increase the exercise 5% at least, or start carrying around the weight you have lost in a backpack. Otherwise, you're decreasing your exercise without realizing it. So guys, this is in the Health Point daily messages. Always has been there, as always. All roads lead back to Health Point. That's rucking in a nutshell. The wisdom was there long before the term became popular, practical, grounded, and rooted in sustainability. If you're intrigued by rucking, start light, 5 to 10 pounds, and build up gradually. Too much too soon can strain your Achilles or lower back. Even without added weight, brisk daily walking provides major health benefits: better insulin sensitivity, reduced inflammation, and improved mood regulation. The goal isn't to chase exhaustion or intensity, it's to create patterns you can maintain for life. You truly can't outrun the fork, not through boot camps, not through marathons, and not through short bursts of extreme effort. But you can create a balanced rhythm of healthy eating, supplementation, and sustainable movement that keeps your metabolism strong and your body resilient. So whether you're climbing a mountain, taking a long walk after dinner, or simply slipping on a backpack to start rucking your neighborhood, remember this: it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. And rucking just might be one of the most sustainable ways to get there. Okay, guys, that's my segment on you can't outrun the fork unless apparently you're in the mountains and hiking up and down with packs on like we were. If anybody's got any questions, comments, Carol, I know, as I was going through putting together this narrative piece, I think how you're often emphasizing not strolling, not like walk your dog strolling, but power walking. And,
Did I try
that's
jumping on?
another version of this, and
Muted.
that is that you're increasing that intensity. So I don't know if you have any commentary on that.
Well, I think that there are some rules that if you can talk, but you are walking, but you're huffing and puffing like I am right now, that's a good pace. And I think Emily calls that a zone two. In fact, we were talking about that over the weekend. If you're staying in that zone, and I love the idea of adding the weights, I forget about that. But I think that is a good place to be because like, say you're walking with a friend and you can visit with them, but you can see I'm I'm doing a little huffing and puffing, but I can still communicate. That's a good level to be at. And it's a good level that you'll stay at. And you said it so perfectly in that wonderful uh, article, it's your article, explanation, that it's things that you'll stay consistent with. And if we're trying in Health Point or in anything to go crazy, that's like exercise the same way, you won't stick with it. And the best exercise is the one that you do, isn't that what we always hear? So I think keeping at that pace, being able to walk, but also definitely getting that heart rate up, because I know my resting heart rate is quite good, but if my ability to drop back down to that after getting it up is not, then I need to work. So that's something to check on too. Back to you,
Yeah,
Eric.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, this never shows well on camera, but just my backpack that I had out in yes, the camera doesn't work real well, but most people have a backpack. If not, you can get something,
Eric, you're in a
super.
freeze.
Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're
Now we
fine.
can.
You're
Okay.
fine.
So what I was just saying is that most people have a backpack. Again, I wouldn't suggest going out and necessarily investing money into an official rucking pack unless you just feel like doing that. But like anything, just if somebody is intrigued by this, you can just start simply. Most people have a basic backpack. Wrap something heavy. If you have a weights and some towels or something like that, don't go too heavy. Again, start with like 5 or 10 pounds. I have a family member that got excited about rucking, and there you go, Carol. So you got a little pack
Okay,
there.
so what that is that's one of those Network 21 that we used to bring tools home from the weekend. We all have dozens of those somewhere. That's what I use every day, just to throw stuff in the back. And you can throw a weight in there.
Absolutely. So great.
Eric, one of the
Yeah,
things one of the things that I found interesting in what you just said that I never had thought about before is the fact if people are losing weight, and some of us, not me, but many people have lost like 40, 50, 60 pounds. And when you're thinking about the weight, your walking is an activity that's like building muscle. But if you've lost that much weight, you're building less muscle because you don't have as much weight to build the muscle. So
yeah.
you're looking like, okay, Pam, get it out. But no, truly, that just dawned on me. As we lose weight, we're not getting as much stress on our bones and on our bodies to burn more calories.
Yeah.
So that was a cool point that it's an aha moment. So I
It
like
is.
that.
It is, and it's so great that you bring that up, Pam, because I think with all of us, when we first kind of like it really like read what's right in front of us, or maybe saw it in a different light. We all have those concepts where we don't really pick up on it until sometime later. I had the same experience when I don't want to say realize it, but actually, realize it more clearly in the health point content, where it clearly says, I mean, it's right there. This is verbatim. This is in the daily messages. And by the way, the daily messages are also in audible form on our YouTube channel on Voices of Health Point. Just go to the playlist called Daily Messages. And each daily message is probably about a 2-minute audio. My assistant, Beth, reads them. But it says, and I quote, also, be aware if you have lost 5% body weight, AKA fat, you need to increase your exercise 5% at least, or start carrying around the weight you have lost in a backpack. Otherwise, you are decreasing your exercise without realizing it, unquote. So that's verbatim out of the Health Point daily messages, day number 10. But Pam, isn't it striking when you're like, wow, that's really kind of like the first time it really impacted me. But yeah, you take somebody, let's say that they're 200 pounds and they lose 20 pounds. That's 10%. The bad news is when they were at 200, they were experiencing all the hardships of being at 200, more, all the unhealthy portions. But they lose 20 pounds. Now they're down to 180. Hurrah. Let's celebrate that. That's wonderful. However, they are walking with less load now. It's less difficult. And so what Health Point is saying is, in that case, that's 10%. So if you were averaging 10,000 steps a day, and this is where I usually cover it with people, is I do now, as they're moving through the progression of weight loss, I'm like, hey, realize you just lost 10% of your weight. You've been averaging 10,000 steps over time every day. So we need to now average 11,000. We need to increase your average from 10,000 to 11,000. And likewise, if they go and they lose 50 pounds and they go from 200 down to 150, that's 25%. Right? So you would then be looking at 12,500 steps on average just to maintain that same workout that they were getting just from the fat on their body before. So one way is to increase your step count, go from 10,000 to 11,000 or 12,000 or whatever is appropriate. The other, and it doesn't have to be either or, it can be a combination of both, is to get yourself a backpack. And if you have, you might not be in a backpack when you get out to go walk in the store or something, right? But, I got back, is it yesterday? Days are running together. I guess I got back late the night before. And, but Emily and I were talking last night. We didn't do it. It ended up getting late, but we often go for a walk downtown here. And I was going to throw on my backpack, right? That's, I'm just going to walk through town, throw on the backpack, throw some weight in there, and let's go. So, yeah, it's interesting that it hits you like that, Pam. I think it hits all of us like that. Well, like it was always there in the Health Point program, but sometimes it just hits us, even though it's in plain sight.
Yep. Thanks.
You bet. You bet.
I think David brought out a good point a while back about putting your extra water, if you've got bottles of water or what have you, putting that in your backpack too, because that can be extra weight and something that is already part of you. And I thought that was kind of a good idea.
I remember that. Yes. David did. That's great. Because again, you're typically going to have water. So there's David. Good morning, David.
Here's part 2. And that is probably more towards the men and has to do with intensity, is that when you come up with this wonderful idea, if a little bit is good, a lot is better. And so I did a lot of water and ended up stressing my knee. And I had never had any type of knee problems before. So My suggestion is start small and build up. And my other suggestion is as Carol has shared before, I was made sure I was on Muscle Multiplier to help kind of grease my joints along with the omegas and glucosamine in order to get my knee back healthy again. And what happened is that I've gotten healthy again, but I have gotten off the track of doing that. So I'm grateful for the reminder.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll be queuing up, I guess, Steve. Thanks for the queue up there for Steve for his talk here on Muscle Multiplier. But I do want to emphasize that, double click on what David just mentioned, because it is a easy mistake to make. Men and women. My family member that I mentioned briefly is my sister-in-law. And like a lot of people that hear about rucking for the first time, they do too much too soon. And think about it. If you just drop 20, 30 pounds on your back and start going for long walks with that, that's different than a natural weight gain that created that 20, 30 pounds in the first place. You did not gain 20, 30 pounds overnight. That might have taken a long time, and your body is getting used to 1 more pound, 2 more pounds, 5 more pounds, 7 more pounds. Eventually got up to 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 extra pounds. But you drop 100 pounds on your back and go day after day for 10,000 steps, you can expect to start having problems. And in my sister-in-law's case, she didn't experience the acute injury specifically when she was walking. She experienced it when she was playing pickleball for the first time, which is, you can get injured playing pickleball, but it's not exactly an extreme sport where you think about blowing out an Achilles tendon. But she popped her Achilles tendon very viciously, had to go through a lot of treatment and surgery and everything. And she was wondering, because she's a pretty healthy individual for sure. And her doctor, was inquisitive on what she had been doing. And when she mentioned about the rucking, and he found out that she had just popped in this large amount of extra weight and gone too much too soon, he said, well, that's likely it. You had really stressed your Achilles, or in your case, David, you stressed your knee. And then when she got into some strange movement, like, lateral movement with the pickleball, she popped her Achilles. So yeah, go gradual. If you've been doing Health Point for a while and you're, fit and strong, then, maybe you can do more. I will tell you guys, when I was out on this elk hunting, there's 3 of us, the guide and myself and my friend Mark. I was unbelievably grateful for Health Point. That was some rigorous hunting. I alluded to it in the narrative piece there, but day after day, hiking that type of terrain, it's not just up the hill. You would go uphill and the guide would stop after like 5 minutes of walking because your heart rate would just spike, and you would just stop and gas your breath. And but had it not been for the fitness that comes as a way of Health Point, I could not have done that. And the only downside of it is that for those that are not hunters or so forth, I'll just hit on some reality here. When you whether you're eating a burger or what have you, that has come from an animal. And so I'm just going to tell you that in elk hunting, you're far away from, you've got to get your harvest. You take an elk, you've got to get that packed out. How do you do that? You don't exactly have a helicopter. You got this very large animal that gets quartered is what it's called. And then you have to pack out these quarters on that backpack. So that backpack that normally was 30, 35 pounds now got, in my case, added a hind quarter, which is a very, very large amount. But the guide turned to me because a storm was approaching, darkness was coming in. We had about a mile hike out. About 50% of it was going to be uphill, up a called a mountainside. And he turned to me because he had seen my fitness and said, Eric, can you take a hind quarter? And I'm like, I'm thinking that's going to be brutal. But he turned to me because, you know, I had the fitness. He took the other one. I took one and it was brutal. You know, picture probably 100, 120 pounds on your back at that point, as well as, you know, carrying a rifle and, you know, your heavy gear and having to hike back a mile with that. It was, but I was very grateful that I was able to do it. And maybe not so grateful. Maybe at that point it would have been good to be weak and inept and out of shape because he wouldn't have asked me. Maybe I would have appreciated being metabolically unhealthy at that point. No, I'm kidding. But anyhow, guys, that is it on that segment. I'd like to turn it over to Steve. If you're there, Steve, you had some Q&As that popped up as a result of your amazing portion on the panel at the conference a couple of weeks ago. If you're there, can you?
I'm here.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, it was interesting hearing about your rigors in the Utah mountains. Yeah, and thank God for Health Point. And you know, you made a good point about if you are working out, that does not, as you're saying, does not guarantee you're going to lose weight. And it made me think. Oh gosh, a few number of years ago, I had some cartilage trimmed in my rotator cuff, and so that took me out of the gym for, gosh, I don't know, 6 months during rehab. And there's a guy that I still see, because this is many years ago. We work out at the same gym, a lot of times at the same time. Now he's a big guy and very strong. He is, in fact, he won a Dan Campbell lookalike contest. I mean, he's almost a spitting image of Dan Campbell, the Lions coach. So he's a big guy and very, very strong. And so during that time I was off, when I got back, even though Jeff was really strong, boy, he had really packed on the pounds. It looked like he had a barrel under his shirt. So just because you work out and you lift heavy weights and whatnot doesn't, it depends how you're fueling your body. Doesn't mean you're going to lose weight just because you're doing a lot of exercise. What are you fueling the furnace with? So I've had, after the panel discussion and whatnot that we had at the conference, I had a few different people come up to me and ask questions and whatnot. And one of the things, of course, had been asked previously was, if I take Muscle Multiplier, can I add my greens, or can I add probiotic, or, you know, some of the powder things with that? And, you know, I said, ideally, it's best to have it just by itself. But you know, I thought that if you do have some of those things in your drink, probably isn't going to be a big deal because it's not a lot of stuff to digest. And I was able to grab Stu Min just before he left to go back to California and ask him basically the same thing. And he pretty much agreed with what I was saying, that, you know, it's best to have it by itself. But if you do put in greens or superfood or something of that nature, which is a powder, and he said, you know, it's going to be negligible. It's still going to work. You know, it's still going to do the job. It might take the edge off just a little bit, but it's still going to work. So, yeah, if some of you want to put in your greens or superfood, you know, with your Muscle Multiplier, not really a problem. Also, I've had people ask me, you know, the timing. When should I take it? Other than, you know, not with food, of course. It really, you know, it doesn't matter if you take it before you walk, if you take it after you walk. If you take it during your walk, not a problem. Any of those times is good. I'll take it before I go work out. I'll take it after I've worked out. Sometimes I'm drinking it while I'm working out. So it doesn't really matter. Just the main thing, get it in your body. Get it, you know, when you're not having something else in your stomach digesting. But yeah, the main thing is get it in your body. one time a day if you want to maintain muscle mass. And remember, everybody, it is not a silver bullet. You take it for 2 or 3 days, it doesn't mean you're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, you don't want to look like him now anyhow. So, but the idea is things take time to change in the body. There has to be a chemical change, of course, before you see that physical change. And, then like I like to say, when you see that physical change, then it creates that emotional change, because what it does for your psyche, when you see things going differently, wow, makes a big difference. So those are just some of the things that I had inquiries about. Trying to think if there's anything else that, one thing I was thinking, what you were talking about, the weight on the back. If somebody loses 40, 50, 60, 80 pounds, and then they put that same amount of weight in a pack that they haven't been carrying around for a long time in their body, and they put that same weight back on in a pack and walk around, it won't be long before they are exhausted, and they'll wonder, gosh, how did I do this for so long with excess fat? So makes a big difference what you're doing and how your body's changing. So that's all. Just a few points I wanted to clarify for folks. So back to you.
Love that. Love that. Carol, go ahead.
No. I love visuals, and I think that's a great visual that Steve just gave. Also, I've been listening to a number of podcasts, and I always think of Steve because, well, he first of all did an amazing job at conference, amazing. And I love that you put your credentials in the beginning, Steve, so people really knew that it was coming from a reliable source. But, as you listen to podcasts, so many of them just weave in here and there about amino acids. And this amino acid helps this, and this amino acid is a shortage in that. And I think to myself, wow, a lot of times we just think that muscle multiplier is for building muscles, but it's so much more, as Steve brings out regularly. So back to you, Eric.
I have a point too, Eric.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I think Steve mentioned it. He made a reference to it at the conference, but I was impressed because, like I had said, I had done Muscle Multiplier intermittently just because it actually tasted good. And so I would have it in the afternoon, or I'd have it, and then I'd forget about it. But when I started realizing and listening to him, I started taking it every single morning, and I use it like you do with my primer, begin, and then shake it up. I drink it every morning when I take my first set of supplements without food. And I did it for about 3 months. And as I got onto that scale, I realized my muscle mass had been the same for months, ever since January. But after that 3 months, my muscle mass went up 1 full point, like a whole step.
Wow.
I was very impressed, and realizing, okay, that is one thing I am not going to omit from my daily regimen. So sorry about that, but I'm just really impressed with it. And because of my excitement about it, we were talking to our friends in Atlanta after we, well, honey, Steve Bever, can you tell them about John? Because he's going to hunt as well, Eric.
This is cool. The guy, he's a maxillofacial oral surgeon, and he had never hunted before, and when he moved next to us, we started deer hunting together, and I opened a can of worms, because the guy's a big game hunter. He's been to Africa twice. He's been to Argentina. He's been to Alaska twice and Canada once. And I mean, he's got trophies hanging all over his wall. But so the next thing he has coming up in 2 years, he's going to some country. I forgot the name of the country, on the northern edge of India. It's a small little thing. It's mostly Russian influence. But he's going for ibex, which is a type of mountain goat. And when I started talking a little bit about Muscle Multiplier and whatnot, just because they'd inquire, like, what'd you talk about at the conference? And so I was telling him, and so he started inquiring more. And so he has ordered, let's see, what, a 6-month supply, not only of Muscle Multiplier, but also of Energy Focus with rhodiola, because he's going to be at high altitude. He wanted to try it to in plenty of a time before the hunt to see how he feels. Is it increasing the red blood cell, the energy and focus, increasing the red blood cells for more oxygen, something he's going to need at high altitude, the muscle mass increase. So he wanted to give it a 6-month shot to see what he noticed, in the difference of not taking it versus taking it, because the energy and focus with rhodiola, it creates a thing called erythropoietin, which is pulling more red blood cells out of the bone marrow. And of course, the red blood cells are the oxygen carrier, and that could obviously it could be beneficial for him at altitude. But that's one of the things that gives us the focus, more oxygen to the brain, for example. So anyhow, it was a nice little serendipity to the end of the conference to have a nice large order from someone that is going to be doing some high altitude hunting. So
Yeah, no, that's really great. Quick question, Steve. What was that name again on the focus and energy? What?
Erythropoietin.
Okay.
And that's
right.
that's the term meaning it's pulling the red blood cells out of the bone marrow. And as soon as
Okay.
I mentioned it, that was interesting, because as soon as I mentioned that to him, which he was very familiar with, of course, being a doc, that really triggered him. And that's why he wanted a 6-month supply of the rhodiola. So I thought,
Well,
hey, great.
Well, the reason it kind of hit me is my guide, his name is Bryant. Anybody's going to Utah for hunting, hit me up for an amazing guide. But he actually has a condition. I'm trying to think of what it is, where I found out through a genetic test because one of his family members was struggling with something. It's where you're producing too much. Is it too much iron? Where you would go in occasionally, maybe 3-4 times a year, and actually have a blood draw done to reduce your what is it?
Hemoglobin?
Yeah, I was going to say hemoglobin.
Yeah, I think it may be. It may be related to that. And I think overall, if I recall correctly, I've heard of this before, so it wasn't totally lost on me when he was mentioning it. But it's basically, I think it's too much iron in your body. It's a kind of a genetic condition. He had a family member that had some health issues that popped up. They dealt with the health issues. The medical community did, but then what was the root cause of this? And it was a genetic trait that he was producing too much. Let's just say it was iron. And so the solution is, and I had heard of this through my oncology courses, where they actually will do occasional, like every 3 months, a blood draw to literally draw down that red blood supply. The problem, and the reason it's circling around to you and your friend that is going at high altitudes, is this guide also was doing a goat hunt 3 days after his blood draw. So he's at high altitude and he has less blood. And so his client was commenting on, why is he so fatigued? It was a repeat client. He knew Bryant's capability, and at first Bryant didn't realize what was going on. Then it dawned on him, well, oh my gosh, yeah, I just had, how many pints of blood removed from my body 3 days ago. So I'm just lacking the oxygen-rich red blood cells that I would normally have. So the point of all this is, I consider myself friends with him now. I'll circle around to him and make this suggestion on this excess focus and energy. He saw me popping it every morning. I mean, we talked a lot about health and fitness. You're sitting around inside of a tent, on a mountainside in the evening. You talk about a lot of things, and he would just see my routine with the supplements and, kind of the morning routine. So it'll be a very easy conversation to have with them. But I did not know that about the excess energy and focus. So I'll look into that.
Yeah, it does a real cool thing in our body. I mean, there's a variety of stuff. If you ever, and party note, you ever get a chance to read the Rhodiola Revolution? All about rhodiola. Excellent book, written by a husband and wife psychiatric paradox. So yeah. Anyhow, back to you.
Great. Just a couple of other things I'll comment on. When you did your segment earlier, you talked about, physical change increases the emotional change. I really like that note, and I made a note on that. Yeah, it's a lot of times it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think that's really important for people to realize that, you get, there's chemical changes going on in the body, and that brings around the physical change, or the physical change. But boy, what that does for somebody's psyche after they've lost a lot of weight. I mean, we've read, we've noticed that ourselves with some of the different people that we have seen lose a lot of weight with HealthPoint, and it like gives them a new world, new outlook. I mean, I think it's important to let people know that. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I like that, because I think by default, most people, and arguably ourselves as well, we think, oh, I have to change how I feel in order to make this physical change. And, so we kind of try to get pumped up or motivated to do this change. And yet, if instead you focus on something that is seemingly more controllable, which is a physical, let's just get the physical change going, okay? And as you're making point of here, Steve, is that when somebody has that physical change, when they lose that first 5 pounds, certainly 10, 20, 30 pounds, we've heard Eileen, who I believe Eileen is on here, talk about the changes in, her emotions, her mental, emotional. She was very transparent and candid about that. So it's remarkable when somebody has that physical change. It's not only I think the elation and the confidence, but it's also a literal chemical change inside their body that allows for better emotions. We talk about gut health, and the percentage of your feel-good molecules, your serotonins, your endorphins that are not produced in the brain, but rather in the gut. So when you increase your gut health, you lose the weight, you're increasing your gut health, you're taking your probiotics and so forth. That literally can allow for a better emotional change. But it starts with that physical change, to your point, Steve. Lastly, because I know we want to get Carol in here, and here we are already coming around the horn.
No, don't worry. This is wonderful stuff. Carol can wait. Just keep
Okay,
going.
well,
This is wonderful stuff.
sure. Well, I really appreciated both you and Pam, Steve, talking through Muscle Multiplier and kind of opening up the parameters, as the way I took it, on when to take it and how to take it. Because I will tell you that with myself, I'll kind of amp up my use of the Muscle Multiplier now a bit, because I think anytime you are going to do anything and it seems really formulaic and kind of restrained, like, oh, don't do this unless you did this, and don't do this until this amount of time has passed. And I kind of felt that way with Muscle Multiplier. And what happens, that then breaks down that habitual daily sustainability habits, because things were not perfect when you're ready to take your Muscle Multiplier. So you're like, well, it's not perfect today, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. But what I'm hearing you say, and Pam say, is basically just get it in your body. Okay, let's not let perfection be in the way of progression. And we know how valuable that combination of branched chain amino acids is. And so if you're taking it and it happened to be mixed with something else, so be it. If it happened to be, when you ate something else that maybe, you're not supposed to, eat it so closely after another protein source, so what? build the habit. And so I appreciate both of you going through that bit on the muscle multiplier and basically saying, don't try to be so perfect when you're taking it. Just get it in the body. I appreciate that.
Well,
I
thank
have
you.
a question
Appreciate it.
for Steve, Steve or
Yeah.
Pamela.
Yeah.
With regards to the number of times I do take muscle multiplier every day, and I'll kind of go between 1 and 3 servings, different times of the day.
Uh-huh.
um, what do you say? Okay, so I'm not a spring chicken, all right? I'm not 21 years old, and I don't pump iron. What would you say for a person that's moving along in years? Would be a good safe amount to maintain that muscle, because we know how important that is, especially as you get older.
One serving a day, minimum. That's what they recommend for someone who just wants to maintain. Now, that doesn't mean, they're really not going to see much definition in muscle, unless they're getting fat off, then they could be seeing a little definition in the muscle, but, mainly it's just to keep the status quo. Um, but if someone is doing some resistant training, and that does, and it doesn't have to be real heavy weights, but resistance training on the muscles and taking 2 to 3 servings of muscle multiplier a day, then they're going to start to see some definition appear. And of course, let me paraphrase, depending how they're fueling their body, of course, as I was talking about that guy earlier. But 2 to 3 servings a day with some resistance training, you're going to start seeing muscle definition. But 1 serving a day just to maintain what's there and not wither away because somebody's eating less or not moving or comfort foods, that kind of thing. And that's the problem with most seniors. They don't move as much. They have more comfort foods, that kind of thing. And so the body uses up the muscle because it needs protein every day. And that's a good question. Thanks, Carol. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate because I've asked you a couple of times because I'm trying to combine things, for simplification. And I know I asked you about the balance within. Was that okay with the muscle
Mm-hmm.
multiplier? And you did research and checked and talked to people, and yes, it is. And then I think I asked you, can you put balance within with begin to kind of combine things? And the same way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, am I mistaken? No, I usually try to take it 20 minutes away from anything else, just as a simplification. But is it protein primarily that is I don't want to say culprit, because protein is wonderful, but I mean, is that the issue, is to not be eating protein and taking the muscle multiplier? Is that kind of the key product?
Well, that's one of the things. But I mean, any food and fat, not just carbs and protein, but any food in the stomach is going to slow down the absorption rate because the stomach is working to digest things, and it's going to impede the movement of the muscle multiplier down into the small intestine where it gets absorbed. So the neat thing is when they say it's 3 times faster than whey protein, they're talking about how quickly it gets absorbed and utilized. Whey protein is the simplest protein to break down, but that takes typically about an hour and a half for the body to break down the whey protein into the essential amino acids. And this happens, if we have an empty stomach, this happens at about half an hour. So 3 times faster than whey protein as far as absorption and then utilization. So, with the powdered things like you mentioned, begin and balance within, I mean, negligible effect. And Stu Min agreed with that. But ideally, have it by itself, and that is going to give you the maximum effect right there, like that.
Thank you.
I have a
You're welcome.
question. How does Ignite fit into all of that? Can you take that together, or sorry, I didn't
Well,
turn my camera on.
same thing. I mean, it'll have a negligible effect. But the Stu didn't seem to think that was a problem. It might take
Okay.
the edge off a little bit, but it's a powder and doesn't have to have the amount of digestion involved that a solid food would. So
Okay.
just, I guess I would avoid putting all those things together in a drink. Begin, ignite, all those things. I mean, you start to screw up what you want to do
Right. Okay.
if
Thanks.
you get too much.
Awesome.
All right, back to you, Eric.
Sure. And back to whoever wants to, David, I think you're.
Yeah, I
Go
just
for it.
wanted to jump in just for a quick second. And again, I learned so much from the mistakes that I make. But first of all, I just want to say, Stephen, just so appreciate you you in the community, and was so proud of seeing you on stage
Yes.
at the weekend.
Woohoo!
Thank you for you. But when you talk
Uh,
about physical change leading to emotional change, in the beginning of coaching at Health Point, I was horrible at the prep days. And it wasn't until later that I realized that when you allow people to like pig out and clean out their refrigerator and their kitchen and everything up to Sunday, then you go on that protein day of Health Point, they get this massive results in those first 2-3 days, and it creates that emotional change. They get fired up for the program. And so again, all roads come back to Health Point. The prep days are important, and I now do a much better job of implementing that as a coach.
Great
Hey,
stuff.
hey,
David.
Eric.
Yes.
Yeah, Charlie here.
Hey, good morning, Charlie.
Good morning, buddy. Hey, one thought I had going back to the beginning when you were giving your story about your hunt, and first off, congrats.
Thank you.
But one thing I was thinking of, how you said you returned right up pretty closely to your weight? Isn't that a big part of the Health Point program, that once we hit a set weight, our body tends to seek that again? And so maybe that's a part of the success as well, that I'm sure you knew, but just as sort of a reinforcement for myself, that once you get down to that specific weight and hold it for a while, you're more likely to return to that weight again. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's thank you for highlighting that and emphasizing that, Charlie. And for those that are not familiar with that concept, we'll just kind of double click on it, because what Charlie is saying is absolutely so true. So we often talk about, and this is in the phase of, is you transition out of your 6-week cycles back to back, and you hit your ultimate weight loss goal, then we enter into what's called lifetime maintenance. And the Health Point program says that that's 3 to 9 months. Well, 3 to 9 months to do what? 3 to 9 months, it does more than one thing, but what Charlie is referencing is what we often talk about, kind of, it acts like a thermostat. It's actually a portion in the hypothalamus, and there's a cascade of mechanisms through what's called the HPA axis, a hypothalamus to the pituitary to the adrenal glands. But backing away from that science of it, think of it like a thermostat, where just like a thermostat in your home, if you set it at a certain temperature, let's just say that's whatever, 70 degrees. If the day gets warmer than 70 degrees, your house is going to turn on your air conditioning to bring it back to 70. So if it cranks up to 75, 80 degrees outside, then your system is going to want to bring it back to where your thermostat is set, which is 70. Likewise, if it gets cooler in the night, if you've got your temperatures on your thermostat set at 70 and it gets down to 60 or 55 or whatever during the night, what's going to happen? The furnace, the system is going to turn on, and it's going to want to try to bring that back to 70, to that status. So our bodies crave that homeostasis. Our bodies crave that state. So when you've been, let's just say, at 250 pounds for 20 years, your body is not saying that's good or bad. It's just saying, we've been at 250 pounds for 20 years. It seeks that state. So when you lose weight and you go from 250 to 240, or let's say you go all the way down to 200, your body is going to crave that, from a thermostat standpoint, from a hypothalamus standpoint, that 250. It's like, hey, you're at 200. We've been at 250. We kind of want to get back to that 250. So that's that all important 3 to 9 months that Health Point talks about, where, you're basically, you're maintaining your accountability, you're learning other practical lessons as you go through 3 to 9 months of living. Did you travel? Did you go, on some weddings and vacations or whatever, cruises? You're on a practical basis, you're learning all of those lessons as you work to stay within that 2 to 3 pound mark of, in this example, 200 pounds. And over time, over that 3 to 9 months, that thermostat resets just like you would reset that in your home. If you had your thermostat set at 70 degrees, it's going to seek that. But if you change your thermostat and set it at 65, it's going to seek 65 in the same manner. So the trick is, to Charlie's point, is I've been in lifetime maintenance. Emily and I did Health Point in 2017, lost about 20 pounds. I did. And so that's been, let's call it 8 years of lifetime maintenance. My body craves that state, that weight that I embarked on this elk hunting trip at. So yes, my body, even though it wasn't fueled the way I would normally fuel it with good quality food and so forth, it wasn't bad quality food. It just was, we'll just say, very brown. It was very brown food inside that camp, that tent. But yeah, my body is seeking that thermostat weight and trying to get back to it. So that's a very, very important point that Charlie, you're making. And I think it, from time to time, and Carol, I know you've brought this up, we brought this up together. We want to remind people that Health Point isn't about this journey of being in a 6-week cycles for the rest of your life. It's about getting the job done, whether that's 1 cycle or 27 cycles. Okay, but get to lifetime maintenance, get to cruising altitude, as I like to say. If you're putting in all that work, the 6-week cycles back to back, it's like a plane getting off the runway. It's climbing. It takes a lot of energy and focus. But it's a period. You don't get in a plane and stay in climbing mode for an 8-hour trip. You climb, you get to 30,000 foot, and then it's easy. It's easy to maintain cruising altitude. And that's what you want to get with Health Point, is get to your cruising altitude, get to your ultimate wellness goal, whatever that is. And then once you stabilize it, it will be difficult for you to bounce off of that. You literally would have to work hard with really some bad healthy eating, unhealthy eating in order to get that.
Yeah,
Just maintain that.
You want to put that
We've got some background
for tomorrow.
hot mics here, guys. So anyhow, thank you, Charlie. Thank you for that. All right. Well, Carol, we've still got, we started a little bit late. I don't know if you want to, I know you're very magnanimous about everybody else's time, but we certainly love to hear your docket items if you'd like to do it now or not.
I can touch on it, yes. I did want to say something, and I think you made the comment, stabilization. And my understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, in your findings, that when a person, I'm going to try to see if I can prop this up. When a person is at their weight, they've stabilized, they've done the cycles, but now they're ready to go into lifetime maintenance. My understanding is that's a gradual process that, depending on the amount of weight you lost, the amount of addictions you had, blah, 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 takes anywhere from 3 to 9 months. And I'd like to emphasize that with folks, because lifetime maintenance isn't, okay, I'm down to blah, blah, blah weight. That's my weight. And now I'm going to go back to regular. I'm going to add in things I loved before, which were very bad. And I'm talking about not just, this is bad food. You just don't want to eat it, period. Heavily laden sugars, all those types of things. And then wonder why the scale goes up and down. I think the wonderful thing about Health Point is the gradualness of it, psychologically, physically, and the gradualness of it being embraced in your body. Your body must embrace the new you. And that doesn't happen the first day of lifetime maintenance. That happens with, yes, okay, I'm going out from friends and I'm going to have a glass of wine with dinner. Great. You're on lifetime maintenance. That doesn't mean you have a glass of wine every night. That doesn't mean you crack out the desserts every night. That's old habits. What it does mean is that as you go into your regular way of living, the health point habits are still embraced. They're loosened, they're added into things here and there, but the healthy habits are lifetime habits. And if you listen to any podcast or any of our Voices of Health Point or anything, it keeps going back to the lifestyle habits that you establish as Health Point. And lifetime maintenance just locks those in. And the harder they're locked in, the harder and stronger the memory is, the deeper it is, the more you can flex here and there. But you can't do it 3 to 4 days a week, elaborating on that. So do you agree with me on that, Eric?
Oh man, unbelievably agree with you on that. I know exactly what you're referencing. Yeah, couldn't agree with it more, Carol. It is. I'll just kind of double click on it a bit. I would almost, for the proper thinking. Now, of course, we've got all the support of the thinking through the audios, the daily messages, the orange dots, as we call them, and stuff like that. But addressing this point specifically, I would almost rather have somebody feel and act like they are still active in a 6-week cycle. And in fact, they are. They're basically in week 6 of their 6 weeks, repeated over and over and over. And week 6 does not say, chug a beer every night and eat a box of Oreo cookies. There's nothing in there that says that. When I start hearing people saying, well, I allowed myself some cheat days, or something like that, as you often say, Carol, there is no cheat days in this. There is choices. If you want to make a deliberate choice, I'm going to have a glass of wine, we're going out with some friends, I'm not going to be weird, I'm making a choice. If you're still saying I'm doing a cheat, you go back to day 1 and start a fresh 6-week cycle, because it is not in your being yet. You're still the old way. And I'm being a little bit extreme by saying go back to day 1 of a 6-week cycle. But what I'm saying is that the thinking, the all-important mindset around I am a healthy person now, not I'm an unhealthy person that did this thing or this program or this shtick. It's this is the way my life is. I value the energy. I value the health. I love my life. I'm loving how I feel. We talk about the emotions of things. If you're saying, but I'm doing some cheat days, that language tells me we've got some more work to do for sure. And I think over that 3 to 9 months, that's some of the stuff that is, when it enters in, we don't squash it with a sledgehammer. We acknowledge it. We say, okay, let's just chat about this. And those are the things that are learned, that takes time to learn, to have that out-of-town friend pop up, in your life, that kind of tempts these old triggers. You stick close with your coach is the biggest thing I would say throughout that process. Do not let loose of that lifeline. Lastly, and I'll stop over talking on this, but I think it illustrates a point. I had someone, she might be on here right now, that came up with she asked me if it was okay if she did it. And when I understood what she was asking, I said, not only is it okay, but I'm going to suggest this or maybe implement this with people where it's right. And what she asked, she had X amount of weight as her ultimate goal. Let's just say that was 50 pounds. She had lost half of that, 25 pounds. She asked, can I transition into a lifetime maintenance mode at this midpoint? Or is there a problem with that? I said, well, let me just ask you, why would you want to do that? I'm curious, you know. And what she said is there was some travel and some other things, but she was about a little bit nervous that if she lost all this 50 pounds, she was nervous, would she be able to maintain it? So she kind of wanted to lose 25 pounds, demonstrate to herself that she could maintain that for whatever it was, 3 months, have a set date where she was going to re-engage in her fresh 6-week cycles to lose the next 25 pounds, but she wanted to build the confidence such that when she did ultimately lose the maximum amount of weight that she wanted, that's 50 pounds, that she would have high confidence that she would not yo-yo, that she could maintain that. I said, that's brilliant. That's awesome. I'm going to steal that, and I won't give you credit. Because I think almost given all things being equal, most people, particularly if they have a lot of weight to do, it would be a good strategy. Build that confidence that you can maintain it and then re-engage in things. So
let me ask you, Eric. This lady, did she report to you in any way during that absence or
great
lifetime maintenance?
question. Yeah, great question. And I'm sure she'd be comfortable with me sharing what the lessons were on this. So here's the answer. No, but not because I didn't suggest it or recommend it. It was her choice not to. She was traveling out of country. They were going to Portugal, okay, for a number of months. And I said, hey, look, you know, my phone's on silent. Check in with me. I recommend doing that. That's very important in lifetime maintenance. And I think, you know, just because you're half a world away doesn't mean you can't still maintain that. And, you know, she wasn't a hard pushback, but she just said, you know, her choice was not to. And she learned. She did well, but not as well as she had hoped to. So one thing that she learned was the value when you're in that vulnerable lifetime maintenance transition. That's not the time to unplug from your accountability. And, you know, she still knew how to do things, but the accountability would have, you know how it is when we're checking in with somebody the next morning, it's going to drive our choices today. And she unplugged from that. It was her choice. And I suspected it was going to not be as optimal, but you know, as a coach, they're driving the bus. I'm not telling them what to do. They own their life. They know their life better than I do. I'm just trying to help them get from A to B, but ultimately they have to do the work and figure things out. And she learned a lot. She's using what she learned in her new portion of her journey, and she's doing fantastic. But to answer your question, no, she didn't. She's quote unquote should have, but she didn't.
Well, that is, I think, a great wrap. I'm not even going to go into what I was going to talk about. I'll save it for Monday night or something, because this is perfect wrap up, because I think people get hung up on lifetime maintenance. They do well because they're accountable, and they're making healthy choices, and it's in the forefront of their mind, and they are transforming and psychologically and physically. But I think lifetime maintenance almost should be called permanent mindset, because we can follow the eating program and the audio listening and all of that. And it's so, well, especially our audio listening. I mean, to me, that is so key in the mindset that we did not have in the previous app, or even emphasis on the mindset as much previously. And I think that is the key thing. If you don't have the mindset, then you're always going to be, Father, forgive me, I have sinned. Now, I used to be Catholic, okay? That's what we said in the confessional. Sorry, I don't mean to be, another term, sacrilegious. But that's the mental feeling that many times happens when you don't change your mindset. We want a happy, transformation. We want a happy body, a happy mind, and a happy life forever. And that doesn't come with denial, and it doesn't come with sins. This comes with, you know what? I made this change over this change, or this choice over this choice. And because I made this choice, wow, my gut feels so much better. Wow, I can walk so much faster. Wow, I could get down on the floor. All the benefits, the benefits, the benefits, the benefits. And back in the day, way back in our early days of developing our Amway business, and we used to have something called features and benefits. And I think that we always wanted to emphasize the features, emphasize the features, emphasize the features, when in fact, we should have emphasized the benefits, because the benefits are what people are after. They don't care what they got to do, they'll do it. But what is the benefit to me, and what is it worth it? You know, what's the benefit to me? And it's the same thing with the Health Point program. You know, these are the features. This is what you follow. It's spelled out digitally. It's spelled out on PDF files. It's spelled out on Thursday night business preview explanation, Health Point explanation. That's all spelled out. What are the benefits? Why am I doing this? And that's what's going to lock that lifetime maintenance in. And so, okay, I fell off the wagon and now I feel absolutely horrid. Okay, so put that in your mind and say, okay, now I'm making this choice because this is the way I feel when I make that choice instead of this choice. And wow, I like this feeling so much better. I feel so much better about myself. And I think that's where the lifetime maintenance is sometimes maybe understated or maybe underemphasized, especially when a person has had a long series of weight loss. I mean, of being overweight, long life of being overweight, and now they've got a new body. That mind's got to go with the body.
So true. So true. And so well said, and such an important emphasis on, the ultimate really goal and what HealthPoint delivers for sure. So, well, anyone else, any quick things? We're going a little bit long here today, but I think it's justified. We all missed each other for 2 weeks, right? So it's I think it's very justified to linger on here. Laurel, I'm seeing you
Yeah,
there.
I would just add real quick, the two things we just talked about is, choices versus cheating, and also learning about your body maintaining. I was on a 2-week pretty much traveling thing, and it was during lifetime maintenance. And I think I maybe mentioned this before, but it didn't take me but a day. I did more probably than I should have on metabolic adjustment, but still the same right foods, just in bigger amounts. And anyway, it only took me a day or two to get back to the same weight that I was when I left. And the other thing about the cheat thing is I found how many people, my relatives, they mean well. Everybody's mindset is they say, well, can you eat this? Can you have this? Can you? And I appreciated that, but I kept saying, I can have anything I choose to have. There's no limit. I'm just choosing to change it. And so, yes, I can have that, but no, thank you. And I was amazed. I must have had 30 different people say that. And it's just the mindset of most people. You either can or you can't, or so anyway, I just thought I'd add that.
I love that, Laurel. You're getting thumbs up emojis and thumbs up for real on here. That's so true and so well said. Well, hey guys, I think we're good to wrap this up. It's been so great. I think we all missed each other for quite some time. And it's so great to be back in the fold here. I guess quick cue up the next thing. We will be here next Saturday, but also we've got the Monday evenings. Guys, plug into these things. It's a very big part of things. It's just, it seems like we've got a lot to plug into, and it is, but if you total it up, it's really only a small amount of time each week. And it's, as my great coach and friend and mentor, Marnie Fondren says, you got to show up to do the labs, right? You wouldn't expect to graduate from school. If you didn't show up to class, there's something about plugging in, being part of it, and thinking that you can just void yourself from being around like-minded people. It's just making it harder on yourself. So I'd really encourage people. Monday night, I guess you guys did last Monday night, right, Carol?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Okay.
And Monday night, I'll do the kiss.
Okay, wonderful. So stay tuned, guys. Carol will do her segment she was going to do today on Monday night. That's Monday night, 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check with your coach, get the link. And guys, this has again been so fantastic. We'll plan on seeing everybody next Saturday, same time, same place. But for now, bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Thank you,
Great
Eric.
week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Great to see
See you
you.
guys. Bye-bye.